Hello, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us here today. I am here with attorney Cynthia Milian. She's the associate attorney here at Powers Law Group, and today we're going to be discussing everything you need to know to prepare for your consular interview. A little bit on our attorney. Attorney Milian is like I said, associate attorney here at Powers Law Group. She's been with us for a while. She focuses on family-based and removal defense immigration. So court is totally up her sleeve. She's a president-elect of MABA, the Mexican American Bar Association of Houston. So we're super proud of you, Attorney Milian. She's also a pro bono attorney for the Montgomery County Immigration Law Clinic, and of course, fluent in Spanish. I'm going to let her take it away with a little bit of our learning objectives for today, but thank you so much for presenting to us today, Attorney.
Thank you for that introduction, Dana. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can best prepare for your consular interview. We're just going to give a few details on the consular processing background, like what it takes to get there, what the National Visa Center is, and how you can best prepare for your interview. So we usually like to give a little bit of background on how you get there, right? So remember that we have different categories for an immigration petition. If you're going to petition for someone, that form number is the I-130, and that petition alone does not give you a benefit, but it does, it's the basis for you to obtain residency at some point in the future. So if you are a spouse, right, if you're married to a U.S. citizen or married to a lawful permanent resident, or if you have a U.S. citizen parent or sibling, then you would start with the I-130, right? And depending on where you're at in the world, if you're in the U.S., remember, you would do something called an adjustment of status, which is where you would adjust or apply to become a permanent resident with immigration here in the U.S. But let's say that you are outside of the country, then you would do a process called consular process, which is the same thing, right? You're applying to become a permanent resident, but you're doing it to the consular through the consular posts abroad. And so people would do this, if maybe you meet a foreign national and they are out of the country. If, let's say, for example, they're in Colombia or they're in Germany, you would do the entire process while the beneficiary is outside of the U.S. And then they would consular process and come into the U.S. as lawful permanent residents. And so, in some cases, you can also do this for employment-based purposes, right? If you're not in the U.S., and you can also, a majority of the time you would do everything outside of the U.S. You'd go to your consular interview, and then you'd enter on the different categories as an employment-based individual. There's also ways for you to, if let's say you're beneficiary of a VAWA application, Violence Against Women Act, right, that we've talked about in the past. It's not only for women, it's also for men. There are categories under which your children can derive benefits. So if, let's say, the mom is here in the U.S. and she has her VAWA approved, then she can also get that for her children. If they're outside of the U.S., then there's a process for them to come in and write in and benefit under that approved VAWA application. So the consular process is not only for, bringing in a fiance or bringing in a spouse, but it could be for employment-based, for humanitarian purposes as well. So a few updates. The nominee of the Secretary of State is Blinken now. We're still monitoring to see when they will be formally placed in their position. We've seen that consulates have been opening up. I mean, this week we had a couple of interviews for some of our clients that were approved, and we're seeing that slowly we're getting more and more interviews for individuals all over the world. So that's a good sign. We're seeing schedules. We're seeing what we've also been seeing is short notice. In the past, maybe we got about 6 weeks notice before an interview. Now we're getting maybe 2 to 3 weeks. So it's very important for you to be on the lookout, right? If you have an attorney that's assisting you, or if you're doing this on your own, for you to be on the lookout for an email that you may get from the National Visa Center so you don't miss your appointment. Because I know that typically, people have been waiting for this for a long time. So The National Visa Center is responsible for collecting the visa application fees and the supporting documents. So usually the National Visa Center, they will notify the petitioner or the beneficiary when the visa is received and when there's a visa number available. And they will also notify you when you've become documentarily qualified and when you've paid your fee bills. So if you're in the US, right, you would be dealing with United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. But when you're dealing with the consular posts, right, abroad, you're going to do everything through the National Visa Center. So you would file your DS-260, the affidavit of support, all the supporting documents. You would do it all through, you could do it online, depending on the country in which you're dealing with, or you can also do it paper filing. How do you prepare for your visa appointment? And so, sorry. How do you prepare for your visa appointment? So whenever you get that notification that you're going to go to your interview, you're going to gather all your documents, right? You're going to make sure that you've reviewed everything. You want to look through that DS-260 and ensure that all the information on there is correct. If you filed the affidavit of support, that is the document that says the person that is petitioning for you is going to be financially responsible, that they have sufficient financial means to support you. You have to make sure that that's up to date. Some consular posts may want an updated transcript. If maybe you filed this in 2019, then they want a tax transcript of 2020. So make sure you have all of that available. Maybe they want proof that the individual that petitioned for you is still working. So maybe you can get a letter of employment or, the last 3 pay stubs to confirm that you are still in that position to support the beneficiary. Look at all your civil documents, right? If you're going to a Spanish-speaking country and the documents are in Spanish, they don't necessarily have to be translated, but make sure that they are the appropriate documents for that country, right? A lot of the times they want specific police clearance letters or medical exams and all that. So make sure that you've properly done those so that when you go to your interview, you'll have everything prepared, and that way this won't be a cause for a delay in your, the decision of your case, right? And so, things that you should keep in mind after you've reviewed everything, be concise when you go to your interview. I know that Attorney Powers and managing attorneys had the opportunity to tour the Juarez post, and she's talked to consular officers and has gotten some background and insight. And a lot of the times they've said that the interviews are maybe between 3 to 5 minutes long. The officers may have already made a decision prior to you going to the interview. So you want to make sure that when you go to your interview, you're dressed well and that you have all the details of your case. You have the answers that you could provide to them. If they're looking for any specific documents, that you easily know where to find that if you take a binder or a packet, so that you can provide those to the officer. So you want to make sure that you're prepared. And at our office, the way that we do things is that as soon as we get an interview notice, we'll meet with the client, we'll prepare them, we'll go through everything. A lot of the times, maybe the DS-260 has been filed for about 1.5 years, 2 years. So there's updates that need to be made. So we'll go through those changes so that the client can have them prepared for their interview. And typically a client will go abroad. They'll go maybe a week before to make sure that they have their medical exam completed, any biometrics, because remember, you have to go get your medical exams at specific locations, right? Each country has on their website, where they would accept the medical exams from. So you have to make sure that you follow all of those instructions. Every post is different. And you can't just go by what maybe they've told you to do in Germany and try to apply that to maybe Guatemala. It's different for everyone. So you want to make sure that you're looking at all of that prior to leaving the country, right? And then going to your interview. And if the visa is approved, then the consular officer, right? Let's say everything goes well, your visa is approved, the officer will retrieve your passport, and then they'll let you know when you can pick up the visa, or they'll give you an opportunity to get that mailed somewhere. And that's where, you want to be careful what address you give, right? You want to give a safe address so that you can have your the packet or whatever it is that they give to you so that you can take with you to the airport. You want to make sure that all of that is delivered to a safe location. And then once you enter the US, there's documentation that you submit and pay your fee so that way you can get your permanent resident card. And then you're on your way to establishing your eligibility to become a US citizen if that's something that you eventually want to do. And so we recently had a consular interview for a client who has been with us for many years, and there was multiple waivers that had to be filed along with that. And that was a huge success story with the delays with COVID. And we're very proud of that work that was done. It was, usually for a person to get to the consular interview, whether it's for an immediate relative, right? If it's a spouse of a US citizen, or if they're doing it through a provisional waiver, it could be a process that could take 2 to 3 years or even more with the processing times going up. So you want to make sure that you are prepared at this last step, right? That you don't waste, 2-3 years worth of work by not going prepared to this interview. So it's very important that you talk to an attorney and that you're well assessed, right? That of what you're going to say at this interview. And if you've never talked to an attorney and you have an interview scheduled, want to talk to an attorney and make sure that there's no reason for why maybe you can get stuck abroad. So that's also something that you should keep in mind as well. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll pass it over to Dana so that she could give you some more details about future webinars.
Thank you so much for joining us today, guys, and Attorney Milian for giving us this awesome information. And again, guys, if you all have ever missed any of our past presentations, we do immigration trends and updates regularly, or on any trends that the attorneys see with our clients. So check those out. You can find those on our YouTube and also on our Facebook videos. And now we're also streaming them on our Instagram and our LinkedIn. So we are all over the place, guys. We also have our social medias, which I would suggest you all follow us, and our newsletter that comes out bi-weekly. Our is at Ruby Powers Law, and you can find us there. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. We do have some upcoming webinars, and I want to share you all what the next one is going to be about. I believe it's going to be over. Let me see. 1 second, guys. We just created the the schedule for next month, and we're going to share that on our Facebook to all of y'all, and we're also sharing it on our website. So if you all have any questions about it, I'll be dropping the link down below so y'all can register in advance for that guide. But next week we're going to be talking about court. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you all on the next